you were standing at 6094 Ironwood, at the corner of Ironwood and Beagle, you would be looking at an empty lot. The house where Victor Herman grew up has long been gone. It burned down shortly before his return to the United States in 1976 and was never rebuilt. Since then, the street he lived on has severely declined. But we can imagine how he and his siblings once played in this neighborhood. We can imagine Victor Herman studying at William T. Sampson's school, across the street from his house. And we can imagine how hard it must have been when their Ukrainian-born father, Samuel Herman, decided to uproot the family and move them to the Soviet Union. He went to help Ford build the Gorky automobile factory for Stalin. The factory still operates today in the city of Nizhny Novgorod, Russia. Although the majority of the tens of thousands of Americans who went to the Soviet Union to find work during the Depression were not communists, Samuel Herman was. A Union man and an idealist, he wanted to help build a better world for working people. His activities got him in trouble. For example, he was arrested for teaching communism to children at a workers' camp in Farmington Hills. The camp itself was the target of violent attacks by the Black Legion affiliate of the KKK, as well as unfriendly neighbors. Today, it is the home of Farmington Hills corporate campus. In September 1931, 16-year-old Victor and his family stepped from this plot of land and began a tragic journey that would last 45 years. At first, however, things were not bad for the many Americans who went to work in the Soviet Union. This is a photo of Walter and Victor Ruther riding bikes during their time working at the Gorky automobile factory. In Russia, Victor Herman embarked on a career as an athlete and excelled in a number of sports, including running. He also became a pilot and set a world record in parachute jumping, leading U.S. newspapers like the Detroit Evening News to label him the Lindy of Russia. But later, Americans in the Soviet Union had their passports taken away and were prevented from leaving the country. Many were also subject to harassment, arrest, and imprisonment. Victor's family did not escape the mass tragedy. His mother soon passed away, his brother committed suicide, and his father, broken by his shattered dreams and what he had done to his family, died in the Soviet Union. Victor himself was arrested in 1938 for refusing to accept Soviet citizenship. That arrest was the beginning of a journey that would take him through 10 years of prison camps, then exile in Siberia, and finally to the Soviet Republic of Moldova. There he lived in this apartment building with his Russian wife, Galina, and two daughters, Svetlana and Zhana. It took until 1976 for Victor to get permission to leave the Soviet Union. He was one of the only Americans to make it home. Back in Detroit, he was reunited with his sister, Becky Kemsley, who had remained in the U.S. when the family left in 1931. Then, with the help of attorney Robert Greenstein, he was able to get permission for his daughters and his wife to leave the Soviet Union and join him in the U.S. Back in Detroit, Herman revisited the site of his childhood home and his elementary school. Then he wrote Coming Out of the Ice about his experience. He collaborated with Wayne State University geography professor Fred Doors, and in 1977 gave a talk on Jews in the Soviet Union in the Wayne State University Student Center in Hillberry B. In 1978, Herman sued Ford for abandoning its employees in the USSR. Initially, Ford would not even acknowledge that Samuel Herman had ever worked for them, but the final verdict was in his favor. Victor Herman spent his final years in this house in Southfield, Michigan. After his death in 1985, the ashes of the former parachute jumper were spread by his family and friends from a plane used by skydivers in Michigan over their jump zone.